everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, and that is Caleb. And boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, today we have a big video talking about Nebraska's new potentially starting quarterback for the 2022 season. We just put out a video talking about some of the impact players coming from this transfer class and talking about some of the big changes Nebraska's had and some potential quarterback targets. And lo and behold, like within a day, we got our answer. It's Casey Thompson from Texas, and we have a lot to talk about today. But first of all, Caleb, how you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling optimistic, Josh. You've been down,
Let's go. The Kool-Aid.
The excitement. The Kool-Aid has been, the feeling of, man, we're kind of losing this transfer portal season. A lot of the good QBs had been taken. You're like, is it really going to be Logan Smothers? Are we not going to have options this season? And then the crystal ball had been read and Casey Thompson's name had been pulled. And it's a very exciting moment for Nebraska football. Again, hey, he was the 15th ranked QB for transfer portal QBs this year. And Adrian was 19th. So, I get a little bit excited there,
Guaranteed improvement.
Yeah, people are saying, the rankers
That's all
are
the
saying,
breakdown you need.
It's
right
a little
there.
bit of an improvement. This might be a little positive. So, hey, he's from Texas. That feels exciting, horns down, and
yes,
excited to see that this season. It's an exciting time, and
for sure.
Again, there's optimism.
Definitely. I think optimism is the word to go by. So we have a lot to talk about. Obviously, I guess we can kind of start from the beginning and go through who is Casey Thompson. Obviously, he was a starting quarterback for most of last season for the Texas Longhorns, who finished 5-7. Not ideal. Welcome to the club. Interestingly enough, he is from Oklahoma originally, and his father this is very juicy. Some deep storylines here. His father was Charles Thompson, the starting quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners in the second game of the century in 1987, where Nebraska put against Oklahoma. Number 1 Nebraska versus number 2 Oklahoma. Unfortunately, that was the game where Nebraska lost 17-7. So there is some kind of family history here with the Thompson family and how that goes. So him being from Oklahoma, his dad played at Oklahoma, he played at Texas. Now going to Nebraska, they're hitting all the Big 8 legends.
12. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all the Big 8 legends here. And it's going to be interesting. And of course, Nebraska plays Oklahoma this year, so that's also kind of a fun little side story as well. Overall, like Caleb said, 15th ranked QB in the transfer portal, 90th ranked transfer overall this season on 24/7. And he was originally a 4-star coming out of high school, was ranked 291st nationally and 14th ranked dual threat quarterback in the 2018 class. And he still has 2 years of eligibility remaining thanks to COVID. So we can potentially have him for 2 more seasons if he ends up working out. So there's a lot of things to like here, and we'll be breaking down exactly how he plays, his strengths and weaknesses, and some of his history and how he might fit into Nebraska's system here with Mark Whipple as the new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Whipple's been, on the recruiting trail, and so is Joseph already. So that's really exciting to see that our new coaches they're hitting the ground running. They are working to recruit these guys and kind of have been leading the charge, it feels like, in this Nebraska vision for the next season. So shout out to Mark Whipple for, we've been hearing, he's been talking to lots of QBs. So glad to see that they have been on it this off season, and they've been really taking advantage. And, why did he leave Texas is a great question. And that's because 5-star QB Quinn Ewers, who lost out to CJ Stroud, he was the $1 million NIL guy who didn't, who forewent his senior season, crazy enough, but lost to CJ this year. So he's transferring to Texas, and obviously, Texas.
Who's the last big-time quarterback to transfer from Ohio State, Caleb?
Yeah, the 5,000-yard man who's going to the playoffs with our guy Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow. So obviously Texas has high hopes, and so that's why Casey Thompson decided to take his talents to South Beach, which Nebraska,
Of course. Exactly. Many championships on the horizon here. He entered the portal on December 17th. And so it was a few weeks here, just pushing nearly a month now, 3 weeks or so since his enter the portal to make his decision. And so there's a lot to like. His career at Texas was a little bit interesting, though. He redshirted his first season, and then, in his second season was the backup to Sam Ehlinger. So he didn't play until his third season, but he was in a quarterback battle basically up until his third season with Hudson Card. And that was kind of the debate of whether or not, it was going to be Hudson Card or Casey Thompson as the starter last season. And he really made his big debut, though, in that 2020 season to kind of make his statement to have the chance to be the starter in the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah, he went 8 for 10, 170 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Good.
Which is very impressive. And Card won the competition at the beginning of the season, but was benched in the Arkansas game, the second game of the season. They were getting blown out. And then late in the third quarter, Thompson came in and he had a decent showing in the game. Kind of went back and forth on the classic, 2 quarterback, 0 quarterback scenario. And
Thompson made his first career start against Rice in week 3 last year. And then he actually ended up starting, I think it was like 5 or 6 straight games in a row there. And then it kind of went back and forth at that point after losing 3 straight games against Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. So 3 ranked teams in a row they lost, and they were winning in the majority of those games at times and had real chances to win.
Most of us, I think, watched that Oklahoma Texas game or the 55-48, which is pretty crazy. And then Oklahoma State, who obviously had a really, really good season this year. And so did Baylor. So, all 3 really, really good teams. And they were, that classic close loss. If you're Nebraska, you'd just be happy about that, I mean, just, 1 score
Best
losses.
3-9 team in the country, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, they were 1 score losses. That's the perfect place for you as Nebraska, 55-48. 32-24 and 31-24. The defense was to blame, obviously, in the Oklahoma one.
And Thompson started that game against Iowa State and ended up getting benched in the first quarter after starting off real tough. And so that was kind of where the near the end of the year, the competition kind of heated up again. So then Thompson started against Iowa State. They ended up losing after he got benched. Then he started against Kansas. Of course, they lost in overtime to Kansas.
Not just
which was
overtime,
insane.
4 overtimes, right?
57-56.
Might have been the best game of the year.
Insane. And then basically started against West Virginia, and they ended up losing, got benched at halftime in that game. And so it was just kind of a mess of a year for Texas, and then trying to figure out all these things with Steve Sarkisian there. And just a lot going on. So kind of a messy year for Thompson, though he led the Big 12 in passing touchdowns and ended up having a very solid season statistically this year. But the question was exactly what will this look like for him the rest of the season, And what does that look like for him in the future?
Yeah, it was also trendy to kind of, in the Big 12 to kind of flip-flop quarterbacks. Obviously, we saw Oklahoma do it a bunch too.
That's
when
true.
You feel like you had pretty good QBs. And also, kind of an asterisk there because probably Spencer Rattler or, Caleb Williams would have gotten the most touchdowns in the season if they would have got the whole year. But
for sure,
hey, Casey got it anyway. And 24 touchdowns to 9 interceptions is not bad by any means.
No. 63.2% completion percentage, 2,100 yards and 165 completions. So those are all numbers you like to see overall. And I mean, what were your thoughts on him as a quarterback when it comes to his talent, his performance overall in those games? And then we can kind of get into the fit and what we think this could look like for Nebraska.
The metrics showed that he was a pretty accurate downfield passer and really accurate in the medium, which obviously Nebraska's, while we had those big plays, Adrian obviously wasn't always the most accurate quarterback downfield. So
this year was his best year by far downfield.
Yeah, I think so. I think Casey Thompson could be an upgrade in that category. I don't think he's quite as strong of a runner as Adrian, not as much top speed. But, mobile enough where, he's good on rollouts. He can take what the defense gives him. Sometimes a little bit too patient, I think, would be one of the arguments. And sometimes he can get, especially at the beginning of the season, he kind of, stayed up flat-footed in the pocket, really stayed on his back loading foot and wasn't really, on his toes to throw. And sometimes
it was weird.
He kind of could get stuck.
Yeah, there's kind of that balance of flat-footed to dancing in the pocket, and he was definitely far on that far side of flat-footed at times when it came to getting sacked or sometimes not fully recognizing the pressure that was kind of coming his way. Pro Football Focus had him graded as a 40 best quarterback in the Power 5 out of 100 with a minimum of 40 dropbacks. So not bad, pretty solid overall. Yeah, and I mean he had a 78.3 rating on PFF, which is a very respectable rating, and you're right in the range of some of the really successful teams and quarterbacks in the country. Adrian, for example, had Adrian had a 76.8 on the season. Casey had a 76 passing rating. Adrian had a 70.4 passing rating. So that's a pretty significant difference there.
Yeah, and it's not like he had an amazing offensive line too. I think that's a lot of the worry for Nebraska fans. Our offensive line isn't great. We're losing Cam Jurgens. A lot of question marks, even though we did have a nice transfer portal get from Oklahoma State. There's still a lot of question marks to be had. although Prohaska will be healthy and Newly will be healthy. So hopefully we can kind of figure those things out. And obviously now with Raiola too. But, our offensive line, you can't have like the highest expectations. This is going to be an amazing offensive line by any means.
Hard to imagine.
But, the good thing is Texas wasn't great as protection.
No. Yeah, they were ranked 75th in the country in pass blocking on PFF, where Nebraska was ranked 126th in pass blocking. So, not ideal. Adrian was pressured on 44.9% of his dropbacks, which was second most in the country last year. Whereas Casey Thompson was pressured on 31.2% of his dropbacks, which was 41st in the country. So still fairly significant. And interestingly enough, he still performed pretty well under pressure. Adrian was the 21st highest rated against pressure. A lot of experience, being under pressure. So he had to perform pretty well. Or Casey was ranked 46th.
Almost.
Yeah, so 21st rated for Adrian, 46th for Casey. That's at least not bad for him. That's, it could be a lot worse. I was really impressed, like you said, with his arm strength overall and some of his times of ability to getting that ball across the field and really zinging that thing in there, and at deep crossing routes especially, where he made those plays across the field, really opened it up. And he got the ball out to the edges quickly. I think that's always a problem that we've had with Adrian, with how he uses and utilizes screen passes and kind of floats that thing out there on screen passes, and can be really frustrating to watch. So it was nice to watch Casey zing that ball out there and get out quick.
Yeah, I think one thing he was a lot better at than Adrian is he would trust the timing of the routes and would throw that in the zone where it was supposed to be thrown at, and would trust his receivers to get it. I think he was much more accurate in putting it in a zone of catchability for his wide receivers, especially in the downfield. Adrian, it just never was in what felt like the ideal spot of catchability. Sometimes it was on a rope, but that felt few and far between, especially with a clean pocket. And under a clean pocket, I'd really trust Casey Thompson this next year to make accurate throws downfield. And I think that's going to really help this offense, especially when we saw Scott Frost too. Maybe didn't have the best downfield thrower, but found creative ways and plays to get our guys open.
My only last thing when it comes to Casey Thompson specifically was, once in a while though, he would get a little bit caught trusting his arm talent. And naturally, when you have those guys that have those big arms and has that velocity in a ball like a guy like him has, you're gonna be confident. But there were times where he's throwing across his body and trying to zing this thing to the end zone, or throwing the triple coverage downfield because he thinks he can get that ball 60 plus yards down there. Or there's one against
Tommy
Texas
bombs,
Tech. There's one against Texas Tech where where he like rolled out to his left and tried to zing it into the back of the end zone and basically got picked because he really tried to force it in there. And so once in a while, it can catch him. We saw what Mark Whipple could do with Pittsburgh in 2 years. So it's like there is upside there with quarterback development. And if you have the right guy, it could potentially work. And, in Scott's history with talented quarterbacks, he's able to make things happen. It hasn't necessarily worked out in Nebraska so far, but, with Mark Whipple and this new concoction of a coaching staff, maybe that could be the key that unlocks things. So how do you feel exactly about how Casey could fit in? What are the improvements versus Adrian and versus Logan Smothers, and fitting into a potential Mark Whipple system in the development in the next 2 years?
The nice thing is, having Whipple as the offensive coordinator, all of our quarterbacks on an even playing field of learning a new playbook. So that's kind of a nice thing, is we're in transition. So it's all going to be an even playing field. Obviously, there's going to be some things that Smothers and stuff with, maybe Scott Frost's vision. But I think Mark Whipple is really going to be handed much more of the keys, or at least that's what Scott Frost has led on thus far. So I think that's going to be the case where that'll be useful.
Is there any debate that this is still Logan Smothers' job to win? Like, where you feel like you're at with that, with the opportunity for Logan Smothers? I wouldn't say it's decided
If you did
yet.
switch the offensive coordinator, probably. But I think switching the OC maybe is a big difference. And I think probably signing on a pretty big prospect, top
That's
20
fair.
ranked transfer portal QB. Adrian should have been benched a few times this season. I think everybody can agree with that. In the past few seasons, and Logan never got that opportunity.
He was benched.
You could say that. Yeah, exactly. He was, and it was a different QB. So, if Scott was willing to do that with McCaffrey, but wasn't with Smothers, you kind of think that maybe he's more of the backup type, not going to be, maybe not win the job.
Yeah, it feels like an 80-20 type situation at this point, where it's like probably 80+% chance at this point that Thompson's our starter.
I think it's definitely Casey Johnson's job to lose.
And to Whipple's scheme as well. Like last year, the highest rated team in passing downfield was, or the highest rated passing team on PFF was Pittsburgh. Whipple wants to throw that ball. He wants to utilize talented quarterbacks to get the ball downfield, out of the pocket, towards the sidelines. And I think he found a guy that can do that. And again, I think at the end of the day, the difference is the trust in downfield passing ability of Logan Smothers versus Casey Thompson. And I really do think at the end of the day, it's night and day. At the end of the day, you're going to trust Casey Thompson to get that ball downfield and probably trust your ability to develop a quarterback to make the right decisions and fit into your offense and manage a game well at the same time. So we're still trying to trust our defense here to be a respectable defense next year, which is to be decided. But overall, I think Husker fans have a lot to be excited about Casey Thompson, his talent, his ability, and pairing him with Mark Whipple and Scott Frost on the offensive side and seeing what he can develop into over the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, again, it's always just helpful to all the weapons that we're going to have as well. And maybe we leak in some more wide receiver guys as well.
Sorry to cut you off, but this gets me excited to see some deep balls to Omar Manning next year, to see some balls to Xavier Betts downfield as well next year. And those downfield plays. And at the end of the day, when Frost's job is probably on the line this season, he has to win. I mean, the bare minimum is 6 games for him. And for many fans would say more for sure.
More, yeah.
And so the bare minimum is 6 games. And so you need a guy that you can trust in the pocket and to spread the field and get the ball downfield. And with our defense not being as good as it was last year, more than likely, you're going to put points on the board. And so I think Casey Thompson's that guy, and having the experience to help Frost in a must-win season is pretty exciting. So this injects some positivity in Husker Nation for sure.
Yeah,
we are definitely excited about it. And who knows, maybe the transfer portal is not done yet for Nebraska. And if it's not, we'll definitely be talking about it on this channel. So hit the notification bell, drop all your comments down below. We want to hear what you have to say about Casey Thompson, Nebraska football, and what this coaching staff is doing in this crucial season for the Huskers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Again, like, comment, subscribe. Share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This is Maxi Sports, and guys, we will see you next time.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.